Imagine standing before a university evaluation board. Like, these are people who are completely accustomed to polished slides, robust data sets, and, very clear return on investment metrics.
Right, they want the math.
Exactly.
Right.
And instead of like a pristine pitch deck, you hand them a compostable coffee cup covered in permanent marker stains alongside a pair of battered oil-slicked Timberland boots.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, you look at this board and tell them, this is my research data.
Yeah.
This is how we measure the impact of lived experience.
I mean, the collision of those two worlds is just jarring. You have these highly nonlinear, deeply personal, raw human survival mechanisms crashing directly into, frankly, one of the most rigidly structured environments on Earth.
It really is. And that is exactly the kind of friction we're diving into today. Welcome to the Deep Dive, everyone. We are looking at a stack of sources today that, honestly, it kind of defies categorization.
It really does. It's a massive mix.
Yeah, we have the architecture of an entire website. We've got artist manifestos, heavily tagged digital logs of physical, mundane objects.
The artifacts, yeah.
Right. Then operating alongside all of this raw, chaotic material, we have formal, rigorous academic research papers, specifically action design research proposals and final reports from a postgraduate diploma in innovation through design thinking at Kirk University Business School, or UCC.
Which is quite the leap from artist manifestos to business school methodologies.
Exactly. And all of this orbits around a central project called FizzStory EXP.
Right, which, began its life as this underground, rebellious storytelling experiment and eventually transformed into a profoundly nuanced academic reflection toolkit.
So, to give you the lay of the land, it was created by an artist named Riordan. And Lou is navigating the world as an autistic and dyslexic creative.
Which is a crucial piece of context here.
Entirely. Lou built this ecosystem specifically to navigate the kind of burnout, brain fog, and digital exhaustion that completely breaks our normal systems of organization. So if you're listening and you've ever bought like an expensive, pristine letter notebook with the intention of finally getting your life together.
Oh, I've done that. We've all done that.
Right. Only to stare at the blank page, because the sheer cognitive load of forming a coherent sentence feels like lifting a car.
Yeah, you're just too tired to even write down why you're tired.
Exactly. Well, this deep dive is going to fundamentally shift how you view your own messy moments, your own capacity. So, okay, let's unpack this. We need to start by looking at the origin of FizzStory EXP.
The catalyst.
Yeah, the catalyst. Because the sources point directly to a massive structural failure in how we share our lives right now. They actually argue that modern storytelling is, for all intents and purposes, dead.
Or at the very least, fundamentally hijacked. Like the documentation refers to our current environment as charge it, trash it, replace it culture.
Charge it, trash it, replace it.
That's grim. It is, but it's accurate. I mean, storytelling is arguably the oldest piece of human technology we possess, right? And originally, it was this active communal process. You shared a narrative, and the community held it. They preserved it.
They kept it alive.
Exactly. But now, as the research highlights, it's become an isolated, fragmented, and fundamentally passive consumption model.
Okay, but I have to push back on this premise right out of the gate.
Yeah.
Because, I mean, when I open my phone, I am hit with an absolute fire hose of personal narratives.
That's true.
Right? There are billions of vlogs, essays, day-in-the-life videos uploaded constantly. We're practically drowning in people sharing their stories. So how can Lou Riordan argue that we've lost our storytelling agency when, the volume of stories has literally never been higher?
Well, that's the catch, isn't it? Because volume and agency are not the same metric.
Wait, really? How so?
In a hyper-optimized digital landscape, high volume actually often masks a complete lack of agency. Consider the architecture of the platforms hosting those billions of stories. You may technically own the video you upload, but the algorithm acts as a highly selective, invisible editor.
I see.
The system dictates visibility based on engagement metrics. Watch time, algorithmic retention, and very specific emotional triggers.
So it's less like a public square and more like a slot machine.
That's a perfect analogy.
Yeah, you pull the lever by posting a piece of your life. But the machine only pays out in visibility or connection if you've formatted your personal experience to match its exact specifications.
Right. You have to summarize your own trauma or your own joy into a neatly packaged 3-act structure that keeps people from scrolling away. It's performative.
It's basically fast fashion, but for human connection.
Yeah.
Cheap, quick, and ultimately disposable.
Exactly. Narratives are shaped not by what is deeply meaningful to the human being experiencing it, but by what will perform well. The agency is transferred from the storyteller to the structural code of the platform itself.
Wow.
And for someone like Lou Riordan, this creates an intolerable friction. The sources highlight that Louis was navigating the unwritten social rules of these digital and professional spaces through the lens of neurodivergence.
Right. The text actually mentions Louis navigating educational blocks, income instability, and repeated severe periods of burnout.
Which completely changes your capacity to engage with these systems.
Absolutely. When you are operating in a state of pure survival, you don't have the surplus energy required to translate your raw, messy reality into, like, the specific type of performative emotional intelligence that modern platforms demand.
They demand a clean narrative arc. They demand progress and resolution. But burnout and neurodivergent processing are often highly nonlinear.
They don't fit the mold.
No, they don't. And during a period of major personal inventory, dealing with housing instability and profound loss, Lou recognized that society had entirely stripped the human element out of these shared narratives.
And it wasn't just like an abstract critique of tech, right?
Not at all. It was a deeply personal revelation that the digital world offers zero authentic holding space for human messiness.
Yeah, Lurie actually writes in the proposal, and I love this quote, "The valuable artifacts in my life were not expensive. They were the things infused with stories, history, utility, and human presence."
That realization right there is the absolute genesis of FizzStory.
So Lou decided to build a live, interactive storytelling system where audiences aren't just, consuming content passively. They become active co-creators who actually walk away holding a physical piece of the narrative.
But to understand how that works mechanically, we really have to look at the actual objects Lou is creating. We have to move out of the theory and look at the physical stuff.
Right, the messy reality, what the site calls #retard and #pre-tips.
Yes, the physical ecosystem of FizzStory. This is where the project bypasses the digital algorithm entirely and anchors itself in tactile reality.
The documentation for #retard is fascinating. I mean, the site literally defines it as shits and tings.
Wait, literally?
Literally. Shits and tings. These are tagged artifacts made from the things we buy, get, give, hold, use, keep, love, lose, and leave behind.
Okay, so what's the distinction between the two?
It's highly specific. Shits are the transient objects, like disposable packaging, transit residue, temporary surfaces, things that are in constant motion. Tings, on the other hand, are held artifacts.
Carried objects.
Well, things that accrue weight over time. And Lou was applying a specific marking system to these mundane objects and injecting them back into the world.
And, this behavior, which from an outside perspective might just look like an artist scribbling permanent marker on random garbage, is actually a really rigorous exercise in meaning-making.
Right.
According to the source document called #RecNotes, this practice traces back to a period of social unrest and personal upheaval around 2017 to 2018, spanning Phoenix and New York City. By marking these mundane objects, Lou found a mechanical way to externalize the internal chaos of identity, breakdowns, and breakthroughs.
Let's actually look at the buck boins from the archive because this illustrates the concept perfectly. So these are classified under #radart as a held airy ting. We're looking at a pair of Timberland PRO buckskin boots.
Okay.
The provenance log shows they were received through an Amazon job stint during the New York drop of what Lou calls the Home to Homeless to Homeland tour of 2021.
So the physical objects literally become ledgers of survival.
Entirely. I mean, these boots didn't sit on a display shelf. The archive notes they were worn through a bottom arp out experience from 2022 to 2025 across Phoenix, New York, and Limerick.
They've seen some miles?
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
They're heavily modified, covered in oil, acrylic, and spray paint on the nubuck leather and rubber. And they are still in the artist's daily rotation, accumulating new seasonal tags. They're a living, breathing artifact.
And then if we look at the complete opposite end of the spectrum in the archive, there is an object classified as a shit called the snaky cup.
The snaky cup. Tell me about the snaky cup.
It's just a standard compostable coffee cup, but the story attached to it in the database reads, sneaky treat, bought and drunk when coffers were bare. It was tagged on March 11th, 2026 at 18.33, and it was trashed exactly 7 minutes later at 18.40.
Wow. 7 minutes.
Yeah, and the contrast between the boots and the cup is the entire thesis of Raytart. The boots absorb the massive cumulative weight of years of displacement and survival. But the coffee cup holds the acute, fleeting weight of a single moment of comfort during severe financial hardship.
Right, because a traditional system would value the boots as, an art object
Yeah.
and discard the cup as literal garbage.
Exactly. But the FizzStory ecosystem equalizes them. By tagging and logging the cup before it is destroyed, it proves that a human being occupied that exact 7-minute window in time and that their temporary comfort mattered.
That is so powerful. And the scale of this tagging, it scales up massively too. The sources detail something called the rat nest art trap.
Which is definitely not a coffee cup.
No, not at all. It's an entire 1970s Galaxy mobile home. It's 35 feet by 12 feet, functioning as a 420 square foot participatory interactive sculpture. It's an immersive environment where the architecture itself is a tagged artifact.
Incredible.
But there's also an economic layer to this ecosystem that addresses how value moves between people. This is the hashtag pre-tip system.
Right, which the site defines as tag depreciation. It encompasses money or tips that are held, shared, passed forward, or used in anticipation of a future need.
The mechanics of a pre-tip are fascinating to me because they require physical patience. Like it's a 6-step loop. Step 1 is the spark. A person, an artist, or a place moves you. Step 2, you physically mark or tag a note into the loop.
You're permanently marking the physical currency.
Exactly. Step 3, you hold it. You carry it with you in anticipation. Step 4 is the encounter that moment the need or the opportunity finally arrives. Step 5, you drop it into circulation. And step 6, the loop continues when someone else finds it.
It's a deliberate countermeasure against the frictionless nature of digital transactions. As we move rapidly toward a cashless society, we're optimizing for speed, right? But we are stripping out the serendipity of physical exchange.
Yeah, you tap a card and the transaction is just invisible.
Exactly. But when you pass a marked bill or a tagged object from one hand to another, you're engaging in what FizzStory defines as transfership.
Transfership. That concept seems to be the engine driving everything here. It explicitly rejects the concept of ownership.
Because ownership implies a static end state. You buy a thing, you possess it, the story stalks with you. Transfership acknowledges that meaning is kinetic.
It has to move.
Right. In the source material detailing the Raytard auction art space, the protocol relies on provenance, drift, recovery, and letting go. So what's fascinating here is how FizzStory is basically operating as an auction house, but the currency is memory.
And they even integrate digital ledgers, referencing IP NFTs, but it is completely divorced from, the hyper-capitalist crypto bro culture we usually associate with it.
Oh, entirely. They aren't trying to create artificial scarcity to pump up a token's price.
Right. They're using the immutable nature of a digital ledger to anchor the physical truth of the artifact. It's just a way to permanently log that the snaky cup existed and held meaning even after the physical cup has decomposed in a landfill somewhere.
It creates a verifiable chain of human presence. When an audience member physically takes a piece of Raytard from a storytelling session and passes it on, the meaning of the object changes. The story doesn't belong to the original author anymore. It's continually remixed by whoever holds it.
It completely circumvents that algorithmic slot machine we talked about earlier.
It really does.
So if you're listening to this right now, just look around your room, look at the desk in front of you. Is there a faded receipt acting as a bookmark, a keychain you don't even remember buying? The FizzStory framework argues that those objects are not clutter. They are ledgers of your own messy, nonlinear progression.
They hold weight.
They do. But, okay, the tension in this deep dive really escalates when Lou decides that this highly chaotic underground art practice needs to be formalized. Lou takes FizzStory and walks straight into a university to try and measure it scientifically.
And this is where we transition into the action design research paper.
Yes, the UCC postgraduate diploma.
Exactly. Lulu entered this program with a very specific, highly ambitious goal. They wanted to formalize the FizzStory framework so that the impact of these lived experiences could be measured using academic methodologies.
Action design research, ADR. The documentation outlines the mechanics of this framework, and I gotta say, it is rigid.
Highly rigid.
You have Phase 1, problem formulation. Phase 2, BIE cycles, which stands for building, intervention, and evaluation. Phase 3, reflection and learning. Phase 4, formalized learnings.
And to understand the friction Lou encountered, we really have to understand how an ADR cycle actually works mechanically. ADR is typically used in organizational or software settings.
Okay, so like a corporate environment.
Right. You identify a clear, quantifiable problem. You build a technological artifact, like, say, a new software dashboard to solve it. You intervene by inserting that dashboard into the workplace. Then you evaluate the data on how it changed employee productivity, and then you reflect on the metrics.
Very clean, very linear.
Exactly. The entire system is built on the assumption that problems are neat, variables can be isolated, and success looks like optimized efficiency.
And then Lou is showing up with marked up Timberland boots and a concept called transfership.
The clash is inevitable.
The final report from the academic sources is painfully transparent about the absolute wall Lou hit during the first sprint. I mean, imagine the scene. Lou is standing in front of peers and academic mentors pitching FizzStory as the quote-unquote artifact for the research. And the feedback loop from the room is just pure confusion.
Well, the evaluators were asking fundamental categorizing questions. They were saying, is this a physical product? Is it a digital platform? Is it a theatrical performance? Is it a psychological tool?
And it's kind of all of them, right?
Yes, but the academic framework lacks the vocabulary to process an intervention that is all of those things simultaneously.
There is an incredible visual piece of evidence in the sources, too. It's labeled Image 1.0. Have you seen this?
The sticky notes.
Yes. It's a photograph of a glass calendar laid over a denim jacket, and stuck to the glass are two bright yellow sticky notes. One just says, "Is dis ADAR?" and the other says, "Find a way."
You can practically feel the cognitive dissonance radiating off those notes. Lou is attempting to force a neurodivergent, trauma-informed, deeply nonlinear experience through a neurotypical, goal-oriented sieve.
It just doesn't fit.
No, because the institution demands that you cleanly separate your problem from your solution. But in Lou's world, the mess itself is the medium.
And here's where it gets really interesting to me. I expected the rest of the academic papers to be a story of Lou compromising, figuring out how to water down FizzStory so it would just pass the grading rubric. But the pivot is so much more profound than that. The failure to explain the project actually became the project.
It's a brilliant pivot. In the final report, Lou writes, and this is crucial, I realized then that I was not just exploring a storytelling problem. I was living a communication problem, one I have been in my whole life. The realization was that the evaluator's confusion wasn't a failure of Lou's art. It was a failure of the evaluative system to comprehend the reality of neurodivergent lived experience.
Lou actually poses a question in the text that changes the entire trajectory of the project. They ask, what if the problem was not storytelling, but how we reflect inside messy, nonlinear states?
And that is the crucial unlock. Traditional reflection systems, whether it's an academic ADR framework or just like a self-help journal you buy at a bookstore, they are predicated on clarity-first thinking.
You have to already know what you're trying to say.
Exactly. They demand that you already possess the cognitive vocabulary to articulate your internal state. They assume your baseline is functional and you just need to be more organized.
But how do you bullet point your feelings when you are completely nonverbal?
You can't.
How do you track your 5-year goals when you are so deeply burned out that your brain feels like thick, gray static? You just can't. And when you try, and you inevitably fail to fill out the journal, the tool actually weaponizes your exhaustion against you. You feel like you are failing at healing.
Precisely. Lou realized that the artifact being built for this research couldn't be the public storytelling system itself. The necessary artifact was the scaffolding required to get a person back to a state where they could even comprehend their own story.
The pre-work, basically.
Yes. The project evolved from an external performance FizzStory into an internal stabilization tool.
And that brings us to the centerpiece of the sources, Fizz at play. The project shifts from storytelling to what the sources call a creative reflection toolkit for nonlinear thinkers. And the text is incredibly aggressive about setting the boundaries of what this tool is not.
It has to be to protect the user.
Right. It is explicitly not a planner. It is not about goal setting. And it is not about finishing tasks. It is designed for fog, burnout, and fragmented energy.
It completely reframes the act of reflection. Instead of viewing reflection as a march toward mastery or productivity, Fizz at play views reflection merely as an act of movement. It removes the demand for linear progress and replaces it with a demand for basic presence.
It's so forgiving.
It is. It's designed mechanically to provide emotional safety when your cognitive capacity is at its absolute lowest. Because this raises an important question. How do we reflect when we have absolutely no words?
Right. And the mechanics of the tools inside this kit are brilliant because they completely bypass the need for complex verbal processing.
Mm.
My favorite component by far is what Lou calls the carbonator.
It's a highly effective, non-normative model for tracking energy states.
Yeah, because if you look at a standard mood tracker, it asks binary, highly loaded questions. Are you happy or sad? Are you anxious or calm? But the carbonator bypasses the moral weight of those emotions entirely and just tracks your internal fizz.
Just the physical sensation of energy.
Exactly. It identifies 4 distinct states. First, you have fizzing, which means you are highly energized, maybe kipping into hyperfocus or feeling overwhelmed by a rush of ideas.
The second state is bubblin', which indicates a scattered, playful, perhaps easily distracted energy. It is kinetic, but unstructured.
Then you hit the drop-offs. The third state is popped. This is when you're suddenly drained, triggered, or the energy has just vanished completely.
You've hit the wall.
Hard. And the fourth state is flat. Muted, heavy brain fog, absolute zero capacity.
The genius of the carbonator is that it neutralizes the shame associated with burnout. In a capitalist framework, being flat is a moral failure. You are unproductive.
You're not optimizing your day.
Right. But in the Fizz at Play framework, being flat is just a data point regarding your current state of carbonation. It's neutral. And more importantly, the toolkit provides specific, low-friction pathways for engagement based on which state you are in.
Yeah. If you are flat, the toolkit doesn't hand you a blank piece of paper and ask you to describe your childhood trauma. It hands you something called #NotVerb.
Which is fantastic.
It really is. It's a tool designed specifically for when you cannot or simply refuse to use language. The source is described using physical props like puppets, desk setups, or literally sticking googly eyes onto mundane objects.
Externalizing emotion onto a physical proxy is actually a well-documented psychological technique. It reduces the immediate threat response in the nervous system.
Oh, really?
Yeah. By wrapping this clinical mechanism in a playful, low-stakes, slightly absurd aesthetic like, a coffee cup with googly eyes, Lumi makes the intervention incredibly accessible to a nervous system that is currently locked in a popped or flat state.
It was brilliant. And then there's the mechanism of the action cards and the remix sleeves.
Yeah.
Action cards serve as visual session slates with preset tags to just get you moving. But the remix sleeves, they solve a massive problem with traditional journaling. They are transparent dry erase overlays. You place them over your previous reflections and build on top of them without erasing the past.
And from a neurological standpoint, that overlay mechanism is vital for trauma processing and neurodivergent thought patterns.
How so?
When you write something down and then your perspective shifts, the impulse is often to cross it out, erase it, or literally tear the page out of the notebook. You want to destroy the previous, quote-unquote, incorrect state.
You want it to be clean.
Exactly. But the remix sleeve allows the layers to coexist. The contradiction doesn't have to be resolved. Your past emotional state remains visible beneath your current one, validating the nonlinear nature of your experience.
So the manifesto for Fizz at Play essentially grants radical permission to be a mess. It actively invites you to tag, remix, puppet, or just sit there. One of the prompt cards literally instructs the user. Start in silence. Try anyway. It still counts.
I love that. It still counts.
Fizzing out halfway through the exercise is considered a successful use of the tool. It's just incredible for disabled or neurodivergent creatives or, honestly, anyone experiencing the modern epidemic of burnout.
We really have to pause and consider how profoundly disruptive this is to the massive self-help and productivity industries. Those industries rely on the premise that you are broken and their planner will fix you, provided you adhere to their rigid structure.
Right. If it doesn't work, it's your fault for not following the steps.
Exactly. But Fizz at Play argues that your fragmented, nonlinear moments are already valuable. It validates the messy reality of the human condition without demanding that you clean it up for presentation.
It's a framework entirely built around surviving your own reflection rather than mastering it. But
Okay.
here's where I get really tripped up.
Oh.
Yeah, we have spent this entire deep dive establishing the physical, tactile, anti-algorithmic nature of this project. We were talking about marked up boots, dry erase sleeves, and googly eyes. It is as low-tech and grounded as humanly possible. And yet, the academic documentation reveals that this entire system relies heavily on highly advanced artificial intelligence.
Yes, the integration of the digi-slice, or what sources term K-cogs.
Wait, cogs?
Yeah, that's the terminology.
Okay, because the sources explicitly name Google NotebookLM and Gemini as core components operating inside the Fizz at Play Lab. They refer to the AI as Silicon Lab Hands and Metacogs. And I have to push back hard here. Does dropping a massive large language model into the middle of a project designed to escape the digital grind not completely defeat the purpose? You're fighting the algorithm by inviting the ultimate algorithm into your living room.
I understand the skepticism, truly, but that is the exact tension Lou is interrogating, and the sources provide a very clear, highly boundary justification for the AI's presence.
Okay, I'm listening.
The critical factor is the role the AI is permitted to play. In the Fizz at Play ecosystem, the AI is explicitly forbidden from generating original narrative. It is not an author. It is not a creator shortcut to bypass the work of feeling.
The exact phrasing in the text is, human stays witness, editor, and meaning maker.
Right. The AI functions strictly as a digi-slice or an AI echo. It is deployed as a contextual engine, not a generative one. Think back to the carbonator.
Okay, the energy states.
Yes. When your brain is in that flat state, your working memory is severely compromised. You do not have the cognitive load available to recognize patterns in your own behavior, let alone synthesize them into insight.
Because it takes so much energy just to exist.
Exactly. So if you input a series of fragmented nonlinear tags into the system, the AI, acting as a companion tuned to your specific rhythm, can hold that context for you.
Ah. So it isn't writing the story for you. It's acting as the scaffolding that holds the raw materials up so you can actually look at them without getting exhausted. It's an assistive cognitive bridge.
Exactly. The literature map in the final report positions AI not as an optimization tool designed to make you more productive, but as a mirroring tool designed to help you process, map, and red team your own chaotic thoughts.
There is actually a brilliant practical application of this during Lou's first academic sprint. When Lou was hitting that wall with the evaluators, failing to explain the emotional weight of FizzStory, they used the AI to translate the concept across different empathy gaps.
The prompt translation experiments.
Yes. The sources show prompts where Lou asked the AI to explain FizzStory to your mom, and even more strikingly, explain FizzStory to someone experiencing homelessness.
And you have to look closely at the mechanics of what the AI produced for the homelessness prompt. It didn't generate a sterile academic summary.
No, it generated this. Hey, you know how every person out here has a story? FizzStory is a way to tell those stories, not just to talk, but to actually create something from them. It proves you were here. It proves your story matters.
It's incredibly moving.
It gave me absolute chills. Because Lou didn't use the AI to fake a connection. Lou used the AI to locate the specific empathetic frequency required to explain a deeply human project to someone living on the margins. The AI acted as a translation layer between two distinct human experiences.
And inside the Fizz at Play toolkit itself, this translation layer is applied internally. The AI Echo relies on custom prompt templates equipped with specific tone settings like quiet, curious, or tough love.
Tone settings. That's clever.
Very. The goal is to reflect the user's tone, not correct their content. If you dump a bubbly, half-finished, chaotic string of thoughts into the interface, the AI is instructed not to spit back a sanitized corporate bulleted list. It is designed to mirror your exact level of fizz, helping you translate your chaos into self-insight without ever demanding that you normalize your syntax first.
It's an exoskeleton for a tired brain.
Beautifully put.
So, having mapped this entire trajectory, starting from profound burnout, moving through the friction of the academic pitch, developing the tactile Fizz at Play toolkit, and integrating an empathetic AI echo, we really have to zoom out now. The sources provide a highly speculative AI-generated roadmap of where this methodology is heading.
The roadmap for what Lou defines as recovery design.
Let's look at this timeline because it scales up incredibly fast. It projects out 6 months, 1 year, 5 years, and even 200 years into the future. It maps how grassroots neurodivergent survival mechanism might actually mutate as it interacts with mainstream culture.
It is essentially a stress test for the integrity of the project.
In year 1, mid-2025, the roadmap projects the beta era. It envisions the framework catching on in underground circles. There's this vivid scenario of middle schoolers in a lunchroom trading physical napkins from story sessions. One kid says, "That sounds like an NFT scam." And the other kid replies, "Nah, it's different. You actually get a piece of it."
Which demonstrates a localized generational shift in how value is perceived. It predicts a fatigue with purely digital assets and a hunger for tangible, held provenance.
But then, by year 2, mid-2026, things escalate. The roadmap predicts the launch of a formal auction house for memory and storytelling artifacts. The first celebrity engages in a FizzStory session. Pieces of tagged write-art start selling for thousands of dollars. And immediately, critics launch think pieces arguing that FizzStory is just commodifying memory.
And that is the inevitable friction point whenever underground authenticity collides with market capitalism. The system that was built to subvert the transactional nature of storytelling suddenly becomes a highly lucrative transaction itself.
Which leads directly into Year 7, 2030. The movement experiences what it calls the Great Divide. FizzStory has become a cultural phenomenon. It is on university syllabuses. Netflix has released a documentary, and the community completely splinters.
The purists versus the expansionists.
Exactly. You have the purists who argue that FizzStory must remain intimate, weird, and unmonetized. And then you have the expansionists who argue that the framework needs to scale globally to help as many people as possible. The roadmap even speculates about a massive corporate crossover, a Nike x FizzStory collab.
If we connect this to the bigger picture, this is the core philosophical debate of recovery design. FizzStory is forecasting a future where we have to actively design systems to recover our humanity from the digital grind. But the timeline asks a brutal question.
Which is?
Can a system explicitly designed to hold space for the messy, unmonetizable fragments of neurodivergent life survive being absorbed by the exact corporate structures that caused the burnout in the first place?
Right. Can you mass produce a tool designed to destroy mass production? When Nike releases a limited edition pair of Buck Biotes, complete with pre-packaged retard tags, does the artifact lose its soul entirely? Or does the FizzStory framework possess enough inherent friction that it actually forces a massive faceless corporation to engage in genuine, vulnerable transfership?
Historically, capitalism excels at neutralizing rebellion by absorbing its aesthetics and selling them back to us. But the bet FizzStory is making is that the physical truth of the artifact, the actual tangible weight of a human life marked onto an object, cannot be entirely synthesized.
It's a fascinating tension. And whether this framework scales into a global societal shift or just remains a beautiful, hyperlocal experiment tethered to a 1970s mobile home in Ireland, the core lesson is for you listening right now.
Absolutely.
The question is, how are you designing your own recovery? When the systems around you demand that you make sense, how do you hold space for your own flat days and your own bubbling chaos?
We live in a world that constantly demands we make sense, that we summarize ourselves into neat little digital profiles or productive journals. But what if the most radical, rebellious thing you can do today isn't to make sense, but to simply tag your chaos, let it fizz, and trust that the mess is the masterpiece?
I couldn't agree more. We've covered massive ground today. We started by dissecting the algorithm-driven slot machine that has hollowed out modern storytelling. We explored how Riordan rebelled against that machine by physically tagging the mundane, tracking the life cycle of coffee cups and work boots to prove human presence.
We examine the intense friction of trying to formalize that raw creativity within an action design research framework, and how it revealed that the academic structures themselves lacked the capacity to process nonlinear experiences.
And we saw how that exact failure birthed the Fizz at Play Toolkit, a brilliant matrix of dry erase sleeves, googly eyes, and AI scaffolding that actively refuses to demand linear progress from a burned-out brain.
It proves your messy, nonlinear moments are valuable just as they are.
Exactly. So the next time you find yourself staring at a blank page, absolutely too exhausted to write a single word, don't force it. Grab a googly eye, slap it on your coffee cup, and trust that the mess is exactly where you're supposed to be. Thank you so much for joining us on this deep dive. Take care of yourselves, fizz out, and play on.